Okay, what do Chrissy Teigen, Kim Kardashian, and Ricky Martin Howell have in common? They all worked with surrogates to grow their families.
That's right, but celebrities are not the only ones choosing this option. Surrogacy has increased steadily over the past decade, but it can be a complicated and pretty emotional process as well. So here with some helpful information on navigating the journey of surrogacy here in Canada is fertility lawyer Michelle Flowerday. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you, so nice to be here.
Okay, so we got a lot of questions for you. We're gonna dive straight in.
Go.
What is surrogacy?
So surrogacy is when a person, often a woman, usually a woman, but could be a trans male, carries a child on behalf of somebody else. So carries a child for the purpose of somebody else being that child's parents. And there are two different types of surrogates in Canada. There's a gestational surrogate, where the surrogate's role is to gestate the child, no genetic connection. And then there's traditional surrogacy, where the surrogate will have a genetic connection through her ova and also donates her uterus for the purpose of carrying the child.
Okay.
Okay, so in Canada, you can't legally pay a surrogate, but you can pay for their expenses, which can really add up. So can you break that down for us?
For sure. So starting with the covering of expenses, in Canada, we have a piece of legislation called the Assisted Human Reproduction Act. It's federal, so it applies all across the country. It doesn't matter where the surrogacy takes place. Everyone must abide by this. And it's a very robust piece of legislation. But what it says for the purposes of our conversation is that you cannot pay your surrogate. She cannot be compensated. It must be a financially neutral endeavor for her. So she can be reimbursed her expenses related to the pregnancy. We want to make sure she has a safe, happy, healthy pregnancy, and those costs can be reimbursed. But she cannot be paid or compensated for her role. But, you know, when you think about it, even those expenses add up. It's an incredibly expensive process for intended parents, but there is help. You know, people building their family through surrogacy, they can look at employer benefits. They can look at, some provinces have IVF-funded cycles. Also, there is a new national registered charity called Fertility Friends Foundation. And the purpose of Fertility Friends Foundation is to raise funds to allocate grants to people to cover their fertility costs.
Wow.
I mean, they're doing incredible work over at Fertility Friends Foundation. This past spring, they raised $50,000. They gave 10 grants of $5,000 each to really, really deserving recipients. For more information, anyone interested can go to visit fertilityfriendsfoundation.com for donating or for receiving.
Okay,
that's great.
So legally, I would imagine there's a lot to consider here. So how do all parties involved protect themselves?
So a couple things to think about in terms of protecting yourself in a surrogacy journey. First of all, work with an experienced fertility lawyer, someone who has, you know, worked on several files, knows the ropes, brings to it more than just legal skills, but an understanding of all of the dynamics at play in a surrogacy journey. So experienced lawyer, number one, for sure. Second of all, certainly entering into surrogacy agreement where both sides have had independent legal advice. They've turned their minds to all of the important issues, making sure there's been a meeting of the minds. And so, for sure, definitely a surrogacy agreement.
Okay. So can the intended parents set legal requirements regarding the surrogates, sort of like physicality? Like, can they say, I don't want you to smoke, I don't want you to eat certain foods? What's the terrain like there?
In the 50-page surrogacy agreement that they will probably sign, there's a pretty significant section about prenatal obligations. So definitely will be covered things like, I mean, the really obvious stuff, limitations on the surrogates, consumption of toxic substances. So smoking, alcohol, you know, all of that sort of stuff for sure. Some restrictions around where a surrogate can travel. We want to make sure that she gives birth in the right jurisdiction so that the right legal result is achieved. Restrictions around or obligations around prenatal testing. What kind of test will she undergo? So intended parents have the right information to make important decisions. So very robust section around surrogates' obligations and some prohibitions.
So can the intended parents sue? I mean, this sounds so gross, but like just sue if the surrogate does anything to risk the pregnancy?
Resort to the courts is like the last thing we want to do. So when issues arise, and they do arise for sure, you're talking about a really important and sensitive subject matter, so things do come up. the first thing we say is talk to each other. I mean, you're entering into this arrangement together. It's a beautiful journey. Like, communicate directly with each other. Try to resolve the issue. Failing that, sometimes the lawyers get involved. We'll talk to each other, try to get our clients on side, try to get them to arrive at a resolution that's acceptable on both sides. Failing that, alternative dispute resolution. So we might say, go to mediation, go to arbitration, have a third party try to help you arrive at a resolution. Failing that, then the courts. I mean, it's absolutely, given the delay, given the expense, it's certainly the last resort.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have a lot of time left, but I've always asked myself the question, like, has a surrogate ever changed her mind and said, you know, I want to, like, not give up this baby?
So in my practice, and I've been doing this for a number of years, with a properly put together, arranged surrogacy, arrangement, where there's lawyers involved and surrogacy agreements and independent legal advice, I've never had a surrogate change their mind. No.
Okay.
I mean, it's a bit of a sensationalized part of surrogacy, but to be honest, it doesn't really happen.
Okay, great to hear. Yeah.
At what point does the baby legally belong to the intended parents?
So socially, immediately. Like, intended parents are often in the delivery room, watching the birth of their child. I've got my surrogate clients often say to me, I cannot wait to hand this baby to the intended parents, and it becomes a really important part. Like, they're right there. So intended parents take the baby right away. So socially, immediately. From a legal perspective, there is a presumption in law that when a person delivers a child, that person is the legal parent. So there is a legal process after the birth where we rebut the presumption of legal parentage so that the surrogate's name does not appear on the birth certificate and intended parents' names appear on the birth certificate. That can take a couple of weeks after birth.
Got it.
Just a fascinating discussion. Michelle, thank you for your expertise and
You're welcome.
sharing it with us. We
Wonderful to
really
be here.
appreciate it, really do. We're going to take a very quick break. We'll be back right after this.
Hey there, what did you think? Drop your comments below and join the conversation. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can find more on everything from food and fashion to pop culture and current events. See you soon.